All right, we're back. It is COMP397, and it's week 13 in the summer 2016 semester at Centennial. Okay, this is kind of an administration kind of piece I'm going to put together, a little video on that, just so everyone knows what's happening. So we're sitting at week 13, and I've given you just to kind of look at it. Assignment 1 would have been your little assignment with a previous professor. He did that. Kind of a, like a little thing that you guys put together, right? That's kind of, I don't know if it's going to be worth more than 5%, maybe 10 max. I mean, that kind of thing. I'm just saying, right? You got assignment 2, which was that whole choose your own adventure game, that kind of thing that you did with the dragon game, right? That's supposed to be worth like 10%. Assignment 3 was the slot machine, right? So you guys had assignment 3. That was worth like 10 or 15% right there, right? And then finally, assignment 4 was your mail pilot, build equivalent of a side scroller, right? Assignment 4, right? So your side scroller was worth, if I'm not wrong, let me just go and check this out, because it's different than the other teams, right? I think it was like 15%, yeah. So 15 for the other one. That's like 30. Let's just say for assignment 3 for your slot machine, 10 for assignment 2. That's 45. Let's say plus the first one, right? And then you got 30 more, right? So it's about 85%, something like that. So what I'm thinking is for next week, instead of doing, maybe my math is off, but is it 75? Yeah. So what I'm thinking for next week is instead of, and I apologize, for being off math-wise, just, today is just not one of those days. Well, it's not a math day today. Instead of doing an exam, I don't want to do an exam, only because there's just, you guys haven't had enough time with this stuff, and you're working with teams, it's a good thing you're working with teams, but on the negative, you probably haven't had a lot of chance to play with it on your own, right? For the most part. I think some of you may have. This one, I can't remember which one it is. Enjoy Slack. That's the one. Yep. Okay. So let's go into general for a second. So what I want to do here is I'm going to talk about the presentation. All right, so if you look at the presentation piece, I'm going to put up in a second. It looks like this. Final presentations are usually something like this. Now, this is last year's, right? So it's like do week 14. I'm probably going to make it at class time. So this is going to be, so instead of April 22nd, it's going to be what next week? Today's the 8th. So it'll be the 15th. So it'll be August 15th. Right. And again, I have to kind of play this by ear a little bit because, guys and girls, I'm sorry, it's just a weird semester, right? We're going to make it 15%, right? So that way you're going to have, it's almost like it's going to take the place of the exam, right? Now it says each team member must present for the presentation to get credit. Yeah, I want each of you to talk to me. That's what I mean by the presentation. So if you're working alone, then you're going to be talking to me. If if you're working with teams like Abel and Tim and Tammy as an example, you'll be working. I want each of you to talk to me about what you're doing. You're going to come up with, it shouldn't take more than 5 to 7 minutes. Let's say 10 tops. I want you to make a slide deck. All right, so it's going to be like this. You're going to have a title page with a team logo. So it's a little bit of thing to put together. Give me an overview of what your game is about. Talk to me about your planning slide. We'll talk a little bit about putting that together today. An instruction slide on how to play the game, kind of a little bit of a demo, 5 to 10 minutes max, like with us together, sitting down, show me your game, that kind of thing. And then a lessons learned slide that basically says what we could have done better, and maybe a future possibility slide to say what I would do if I had more time and if this semester was different. Just putting it out there, right? And that'll be worth 15%. That'll be your exam for next week, okay? So I'm going to post this up on eCentennial. In fact, instead of me waiting, I'll just post this up right now. And then that'll be it for the class. It may not be out of 100%. So it means that some of this stuff is going to be worth in the 15% weight. It's going to be worth a little bit more because it's going to be spread out over the entire piece. But it's going to have that kind of weighting. So 15 out of 85 or whatever it's going to be. Your 15, I think it'll be out of 85. So it'll be slightly higher than 15%. I think so. Can't be. Hold on. Let's try this again. We'll do it together, Abel. Right? So you're the math guy, right? So We'll do this together. It's not that much. It's not that many. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. We'll put it up together so we'll talk. The reason why I'm showing you this is so that we're transparent. I don't want to hide anything. It's not about hiding. It's about, hey, this is where we're at, you know, and this is what we need to do, right? So let's put this up. I'm going to put up, you know, the thing for eCentennial here for a second. Right. So let's see what we got so far, because I think it's important for us to take a look at what we have, and then how much it's going to be worth, right? Because I don't want to shortchange anyone. I think that website was made with ASP.NET. I don't know. So I don't know. All right. So if we look at grades right now, right, you can see that I got 70 right now. See, so we're right, 70. So add 15% for your final, 85. So you're only missing 15%. I can't do anything for this 15%. I mean, I can, but it would be bad. It's better if we just spread it out, right? So that way everything that you do is worth a little bit more, right? So actually everything will be worth 15% more relative to everything else, right? And we'll talk about that. So if I add it in, if I talk about a new Dropbox section, which I'll add right now, so a new folder, and also we'll call it final presentation, right? And just so you guys see how this is, it's not it's like an assignment, okay? So we'll put it under assignments, and we'll do a new grade item, which will be worth, again, if I was to look at this, maximum weight will be 15. Again, I can change the weighting around manually, but it's, you know, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it'll actually work out to be a lot worse in terms of everything else. And I've done this before, so I kind of know how this works out. 32 marks. So that's why I went there. So 32 marks. Can you exceed? Yeah, if you wow me, I'll let you exceed, right? If you're just super awesome with your presentation, right? Oh yeah, what did I miss? One error. Oh yeah, the name, that would be good, presentation. Okay. That's out of 32. We go, and no rubric for this one. But we'll add in the document. So I'll put the document up so you guys can see what you're being ranked on. So we'll go to courses, 397. And then again, I'm doing this with you guys so you know like exactly what's going on, so there's no surprises. I don't want that to happen ever. You guys have had enough surprises this semester. So if I go restrictions, we'll make it do the by end of class or end of day that day, just if you want to choose anything. So we'll make it due by, let's say, you know, 11:30 that night, right? So it's like an exam, but you have to be there. You have to be physically here. If you don't present to me, by the way, for the people who are not here today, if you're not here next week, 0, right? You need to be here next week to present to me. So please don't try and skip next week. It's like an exam week. Think about it as a test, but it's like an oral thing. You sit down with me, you know, whatever, and we're done, right? So please, if you're not ready to present everything by next week, it's due next week anyway, right? Sit down with me, talk to me about your project, and we're good to go. So this one is due, the presentation pieces of what you've got ready is due next week. Now the questions I always get with this is, well, Tom, what if I'm not ready? You better be ready, is all I'm saying. It's like, there's otherwise, if this is how it's gonna go, right? And so if I go to grades now, you can see that it's worth 85%, not 100%, right? What was that? Yeah. Oh, so assignment 2 is worth 15. There we go. So that's the, no, I was right. No. This, so assignment 1 was worth 10. Assignment 2 is worth 10. I mean, I can change some of this. That's weird. What is this? Oh, these are 30. That's 30. Assignment 4. That's weird. Why is that? Yeah, this is wrong. This is wrong. See what happens when you're you know, yeah. So let me just make sure. So assignment 4. So I want to make sure we can adjust some of this. So that's good. So assignment 4 will be male pilot, which is here. That's weird though. I put together a rubric for this, right? So I'm wondering why with 15, assignment 3, 4. So if that is the way it is, why is this grade item not this? Let's go to this one. Let's go to this one. Back to grades. Assignment 4. If I go edit grade item, 15. I have a rubric first. Yeah, see, I have a rubric. Oh. Yeah. No. I want to. That's weird. Why the hell did it do that? No, it shouldn't be that. That is incorrect. 15. The total, the points are just how I rank you, right? And the weight, it should be 15. That should be 15. So that's weird. Where's the rubric though for that? So if I go to add a rubric, assignment 4 is there. Well, I got to figure this out because it's not 15 points. That's definitely not the case. Save and close just for a second. So that will be worth more. Assignment 3 is your slot machine. Yeah. So I'm just going to record again. I want to make sure that everyone's clear because the last thing I want to do is, and this would have been assignment 3. You guys got, mine was assignment, mine would have been assignment 2. You got a different document than I did, right? Because I wasn't there with this one. So if I'm not wrong, yeah, with work 10, and I'm thinking of making, like I said, I was going to make 15, so that's going to make up that one. So let's go and do that one. This should be worth 10, 15, like that. I don't know why it's 15 marks. That's weird. Remember, I didn't have complete control over this one for the whole time, right? 10 for assignment 2. Assignment 2 would have been the dragon.
Oh my God, that's simple.
Yeah, 10.
We never called it dragon.
No, it wasn't dragon for us. Any kind of event. It was just create like a weird adventure game.
Adventure game, right?
Yeah, but then in some of the documentation it said dragon. So.
10.
Document the dragon.
That's what it was called, yeah, document dragon. So now we're looking at like 5%. So we'll, I don't know. Now these ones are worth 10, 10, 10, right? So I can't do anything there. This one's worth 10 for the first one, right? No, what, these ones? No, I can't. You'll kill you. This will kill people if I do this. I don't want to make these more than 10. That's 30% for your finals, right? And plus, huh?
Like you can change.
I got it's 10, 10. I can't change it, but I can change assignment 2. But that means like, you know, why don't I do this? Why don't I make assignment 4 with 20, right? Because that's the one that you guys based off this one. That makes sense, right? So I'll make the edit. I'll enter the grades, edit grade item, and I'll make this worth 20, right? So, and again, I don't know why this is saying maximum points is wrong. 20. Save and close. Let's see what the rubrics. How do I do the rubrics? I'll figure this out. But anyways, so now we got 100%. All right. It'll make it up. This is it makes more sense. It makes more sense. What makes more sense? That you guys okay? Are you okay with this stuff? You want me to change anything around? Are you sure? Okay. But this is all wrong. These marks are messed up. I don't know why they're like that, but these ones will have to be before I finish everything off. You'll see. Okay, it'll all make sense in the end. How about that? Okay, so going back to what I said is what we need to do is this final presentation piece. This is why I'm talking about this today with you guys so that we know what's happening next week. It's mandatory that you come in. Okay, so you can't do this presentation piece remotely. All right. One of the things that the presentation document says is, and I'm just specifying with you guys, working with your partners or on your own, you will present your final game. Your presentation should include details contained in your external document. You must be prepared to present live. Use a slide deck during your presentation to keep you organized. Your presentation should be no longer than 5 to 7 minutes. Note, each team member must present for the presentation to get credit. That means you got to be here. Treat it like an exam. Okay, if you're not here, you missed your exam. Okay, this is what it's all about. Okay, so this is going to be in place of an exam, just to help you guys out. Not because I want to do presentations. I don't think it's a good idea. In general, there's just too many people to do the presentation. From a technical perspective, if I look at the stuff we could talk about, and if I go back to this thing, so if I go back to the to here, I look at the week plan. Monday, August the 8th, it says we will use this as special topics week, and I will include practice, particle effects, how to use them. One of those things is what I want to talk about today: how to fire bullets, that kind of thing. We can talk about that today. But I want to hit one of those topics. Okay, so we can't do it all, and because also I want to make sure I can sit with all of you, whoever are here today. Unfortunately, for the people that are not here, well, there's nothing I can do there. And then next week won't be, it will just be purely me sitting. So there will not be any kind of video next week. It's purely going to be me sitting with you guys doing your exam from the very moment that we walk in. So please be early. I'll be early, and if we can do that, we can get out early, right? Because I don't want to sit there. Now, what if you're done? So you presented your exam next week, you know, as an example, your final presentation. Can you go? Yes, you can. So some people are going to say, "Can I go first?" I'm just putting it out there because I know this has happened, right? So you want to get your stuff done and see you later. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a lottery, right, for who can go first to make sure, right? Because in other months it's like, I volunteer, I'm going to present first. That's a totally different thing. That means you got to go up in front of the class and then be the first guy. Usually, when you're presenting, that you know it's a scary thing. You know, you're your first person up. You know, you may screw up, whatever. You're worried. This is not the case. You're presenting to me, so you're not going to be frightened or whatever. So you're going to want to go first. So we're going to have to come up with a lottery, and it could be something like rock paper scissors. No joke, right? And then who wins, and then or random numbers. You roll the dice. Roll a 100-sided die. You know, I'll bring a big like 20-sided die. We'll roll it. Bam, right? Some kind of random number generator, and wherever you fall, if you get the same number as somebody else, you roll off, right? And then whoever wins goes first, right? And that's how it'll be. And then we'll figure out the order that way. It is a game course after all, right? So that'll be how we'll do it. We'll do it kind of as honest by the numbers as we can, right? And that's what will happen next week. So what do you guys want to do? The people that are here are the people that can choose. I also got, if you're up on Slack, if you're watching this video live, I will accept your input for what you want to learn today. I will do whatever you tell me to do because I want to help you with your final project, right? So I don't mind showing you something new, and then it won't be the whole thing, the whole class, but we'll do something that's kind of cool. So what do you guys want to do? Shoot bullets. Okay, I like the shooting bullets things is a good thing.
I second that.
Second that. So I'll do a poll. I'll do a poll here on thing. Here we'll say is what would you like? Would you like to do for Special Topics Week? Special Topics Week, and we'll say something like bullet shooting, right? And then that's A, right? And then B will be something else. We'll say particle effects. You can only do one, okay? And the other one will be something like box 2D physics, right? What else would you like to learn? How about those three? There we go. And then you guys choose what you want to do. So there we go. So you can go up there and choose one of those. It's a simple poll up on COMP397. And what I'll do is I'll give you a few minutes. We'll pin this up. Well, maybe we won't pin it up. We're here anyway. Looks like bullet shooting. All right, I know bullet shooting is a big one. We did kind of particle effects. I know you want to do particle effects, right? Yeah. There's enough people doing particle effects. We'll do that one. Particle effects is kind of cool. You know, the way we do that is actually we need an emitter, which is kind of neat. Well, so we created an emitter, and then from the I got a smiley face. From the emitter, what we can do is we can put together we make the emitter kind of generate the particle effect. I've got some code about this. I've done it before. It took a bit of insane work to get it going, and the problem with particle effects is I have to build my own library. Yeah, so that'll take like all class. It's really hard to do. But it looks like bullet shooting is working the best. I'll wait for a few more minutes, and who's ever watching the class can kind of make their vote. If you're watching the class, please go up to your Slack, and then do your vote quickly, and then I got some. hold on, I gotta add mine, right? Because that's just not fair, right? So I like God. No, I don't like God mode. God mode. There we go. God mode, right? Right, so there we go. So we'll put some other things in there. Okay, so 2 is particle effect. Particle effect is coming close to 2. It looks like still I'm winning with bullet. Bullet shooting is straightforward. There's a couple ways we can do bullet shooting. One of them is, do I want to shoot at a particular object in a diagonal? That's a little difficult. That's going to use sine and cosine shooting bullets. And, you know, we're going to need to do some work involved in that one. And the other one would be, what if, you know, what if you're just shooting bullets straight up? Like, that's the first one. Can we do bullet shooting straight up? Like, you know, or straight, like I'll use male pilot to shoot bullets, right? That's, you know, what does it take to make a bullet, right? Not much, right? But how do you make a bullet, like a bullet group, or, you know, that kind of thing? Like, there's stuff around bullets in terms of an array. Okay, that's enough. I think people have had some, it looks like it can be, if I can get to it, I'll do particle next, okay? Or what is this? Is particle? Yeah, particle effects. If I can do particle, I'll try and do particle. Particle is kind of hard, and I don't know if I can do it all. I'll do my best. Worst case, maybe I'll do a little addendum video, not today, another day, and I'll do a little video just on just to make sure that our friend is happy, Jay, right? So, okay, so we'll do bullet physics today. We'll close it off. Bullet physics it is. I don't know how you close this thing off. Mark, copy link. All right, we'll say bullets it is. Bullets it is. There we go. Okay, so how do we do bullets? Let's talk about this for a second. All right. Still going? We're still going. I closed the window down too. Not a great thing. One thing we should probably do, hold on a second, just to make sure that we're still operational with our trans things. Make sure that YouTube, we should see it going on there. If I go to Creator Studio, we should be able to see under our live streaming events, we should see that event still going on. Yay! Okay, good. That's what I wanted. So with bullets are interesting. Let's pull up, you know, we're going to bring up Mail Pilot. By the way, I've been working with Mail Pilot, trying to get Mail Pilot on Cordova. Oh, what a train wreck that was. Oh, yeah. Preloading, getting the bitmaps working. It was real pain. I had partial power, Captain. I can't tell you I had full results right for this one. Cordova has been really difficult to work with in terms of getting all the plugins going and all that kind of stuff. It's not really friendly. You know, I highly recommend using Unity for this kind of thing, to go to iOS or Android. You know, only because there's just not a lot of support for stuff. Webpack, I was going to do Webpack for you, right? With CreateJS. Webpack not supported by CreateJS, so can't do that one. Gulp, that's kind of something cool. We'll talk about a little bit about how we can combine your stuff into one file, right? An out file, as opposed to make everything a bunch of files. How we do that, right? We'll talk about that today. We'll include that as an ancillary piece of technology we're going to use on top of everything else, right? So we're going to work with our Mail Pilot build that we're continuing to work with. And I'm going to pull up, by the way, Visual Studio Code got fixed, which is good. You can drag and drop again, right? Before you couldn't drag and drop. That's a good thing. All right, so where are we with Mail Pilot? I think that's important to know. I also have a really cool extension that gives me little icons, too, for Visual Studio Code, which is kind of neat, right? I think it's called, hold on a second. It keeps on wanting me to enable, right, or update. It's called VS Code Icons. Kind of cool. Don't update again, because every time you update it, I don't know why. But so VS Code Icons. And so I want to talk about bullets. We need a bullet object, right? So first of all, how do we do bullets? Let's think about this for a second. If I go to our favorite program, which is Fireworks, right, to do graphics, and again, you can use any graphic program you like. Photoshop, if you want to, or whatever, is totally fine. Let's say I want to make a bullet, right? Now, there's a couple ways we can do the bullet. We can make a bullet with, you know, like graphics, right? Like actual graphic bullet, a circle, you know, you make a shape. We haven't done shapes and graphics yet. I don't know, maybe you guys did for the first thing with the last professor. Did you guys do anything on Canvas? I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm putting it out there. Maybe you're laughing. I mean, Tim's laughing. If Tim's laughing, it means no, right? We could do that with the graphic, you know, the shapes, and actually using graphics to make something. CreateJS also can be used to make physical shapes like squares and rectangles and circles and all that stuff. No problem, right? Or we can make a bullet, which is just going to be a circle, right? Literally, and it'll be a certain size. And we can use the bullet to do collisions just like we do because it's a game object, right? So because it's a game object, it'll have a shape. It'll have it'll be an object. We can make it a sprite. It'll have direction. It'll have distance. It'll have speed. All that kind of stuff. Now the challenge with the bullet is it's very small, right? So depending on how big the bullet is, how do you detect the collision? That's the thing with the bullet. It's really got to be right on top of the other one, to make it work, right? So we got to be very careful here on how this goes. There's some challenges here. So let's open up a new project here, thing, and I'm going to make this very small. Let's make it, okay, how big? From a visibility perspective, you got to figure how big a bullet is. If I make it, let's look at 32 by 32 first. It's pretty large, all right? So if I look at 32 by 32, and I don't know why this is 143, but let's make it 96 pixels per inch, right? And we'll make it white. Sure, we'll make it white. It's this. That's a pretty big bullet, right? So that's pretty large. It's like a big bullet coming at you, right? Maybe if it was a missile, it might be that big. But if I keep going back down here, and let's change the canvas size again. And if I go from 32 by 32, there's a reason why I'm doing 32 and 32 and 16 and 16, by the way. If I go 16 by 16 bullet, right? And if I press OK, that's still pretty large, but and that's the actual size, 100% size. That's okay. That probably can pass, right? And remember, this is the square that's going to house our bullet, right? So let's make it really big. I'm just kind of zooming in, and we're going to, kind of draw it, right? Like with this, I'm going to kind of take the edge at 0, 0, and just draw the circle, right? So there's 16 by 16, and you can see that this is the bullet. Right, now you can make whatever color bullet you want, red, blue, black, whatever. I'm going to make mine black, right? So it's going to look, whatever. In MailPilot, it might be good to make yellow because our text is yellow and the background is blue, right? It's kind of a weird look anyway, or kind of a mix of yellow and red, some kind of other colors that kind of bring out the yellow, right? Because the blue is the contrast, right? So you may want to do that. So if I was to do that, if I was to make it yellow, true yellow, I can choose a yellow that makes sense, like this one. There's my bullet. I don't want to choose any kind of border because that would look kind of weird. Maybe what I want to do is make the inside of it red, right? So I could choose to, I'm just using this thing, copy this and paste it on top. So I've got two. And then what I can do is I can size the other one, right? You can see I can size the other one so it's inside of the first one. Right, so I can take the first one, then I move it, and I move it inside the second one, as long as it's kind of centered. That might be it, right? And then change the color of this one to another color, like red, right? And then if it's not right exactly, we can move it up a little bit and just realign it. And it's hard because 16 by 16 is kind of a weird color, but it's okay if it's not 100%. And if it's too big, we can make it even smaller. Let's say maybe a little bit smaller because maybe it's too big. Yeah, maybe something like that. Looks like an orange bullet. But again, you can make your bullets, you can take a bullet from a bitmap or whatever, it doesn't matter. And you don't have to even make this, kind of, equal in length, right? You can make it so that it looks like an eye, right? Whatever. A bullet, like a big O, right? And if you really want to, you can add some other shapes to that. So if you want to make some other thing that overlaps, it's just something that looks. Now, if I want to add a little bit of a border on it, you can certainly do that. Please make it very thin, and something that's too big, right? So it'll have to be like 0.1. I can do 0.1. This is pixel by pixel, right? So it's going to be a big. Take off, Jay. See you later. So let's go like this. Make it maybe a little darker. Yeah, too dark. So again, I'm just choosing a nice color for the outside, and maybe I'm still not liking that too much. So let's make a little bit in there. Yeah, maybe like it's gotta be fiery looking. Come on, bullet. Okay, there's my bullet. Now this might not look like much, but it doesn't really matter. It's 16 by 16, guys. It's so small. It actually looks like this, right? So when you actually go to 100%, and if you don't like it, if you think this is too big, right? That's okay. But that's how the actual size is going to be. It's like really small, right? All right, here's the other thing. So I want to go up, move it a little bit. And now let's change the canvas color. Make sure the background color is transparent, so it's not white, right? So now it's going to go over the background. Otherwise, you'll show up black. And now that we got our bullet, whatever it looks like, we're going to file, save as, into our assets folder. So I'm going to go to my desktop, into this asset folder on a mail pilot, and we're going to put it under assets inside images. So we need some kind of object. So we're going to call this bullet. Okay, all right. Question, should I make it a sprite? Should I make it a sprite? Here's the reason why you want to think about making it a sprite. Because if you think about the game object that I put together last time for you guys, remember in the addendum video that I put together when we weren't together, right? I talked about moving to a sprite sheet. So if you look at objects, game object, right? If you look at this object, it kind of extends a sprite, right? And the reason why you may want to do this is because it has a bunch of stuff built into it, like height, weight, half height. You can do all this kind of stuff, and it's much easier for you to decide whether there's a collision being done here. Remember, when we do our collision manager, I mean, it's all planning, right? So we do a collision manager. Collision manager uses a game object, which means probably make it a sprite. It's a good idea to make it a sprite. If I make it a sprite, oh man, I got to change my darn sprite sheet again, right? Let's do that. So we've got our sprite, and what we're going to do here is, if I go to the actual project on my operating system, I've saved, and for you guys as well, I've saved the MailPilot TPS file, which is the texture packer file, right? So you can always open it up in texture packer. Here it is, and now I can drag and drop. No, I do not want to upload this version. Thank you for now, not this semester. I want to drag and drop the bullet onto here, and it's going to add it into the sprite sheet. Now, what I'm hoping, there's enough room that doesn't mess up the rest of our sprite sheet. All right, so here's our new sprite sheet with the bullet, right? So bullet's in there. Okay, there it is. And what I want to do is I want to publish the sprite sheet back to where it came from. So publish. So it's going to go users, Thomas, and then my MailPilot build is published. Yay, my sprite sheet's done. All right, I'm going to save my project. This is nice, right? Then I'll upload everything up to GitHub for you guys so you can see the differences. Cool, so texture packer is done. And now I can go into my assets. So if I go to assets and I go to images, here's my atlas, okay? And I can compare this with what I have, bullets number 2. See, it messed me up. I can tell you right now it messed me up, right? So you got to be strategic about these things, right? Copy pasting, you have to be smart about what to copy paste. First of all, here's my frames, right? And if I was to split screen with me for a second, and I want to make this one. One of them is going to be my actual game file, which is going to be in here. This is my game file, and I'll just open this up so you guys can see more. Here's my game file, right? And as you can see, I have a manifest right here of my stuff, right? So here's my cloud 0, exit button's 1, but exit button's going to be replaced by bullet 1. And the one thing I don't want to get rid of is this, because this is my frames. So frames for my plane, right? Plane 1, plane 2, plane 3 is frames 4, 6, 8. It used to be. Now it's going to be it's going to be 5, 7, 9, right? So that's going to change. So let's just do that now. So 5, 7, 9. These are all changes I want to make ahead of time before I do anything. Because once I start transferring, this is just tells you where the geometry is on the sprite sheet. The sprite sheet that's why we call it a texture atlas. You look at the sprite sheet, and there's objects on the sprite sheet, and you got to know where the object is so that you can just load that one street up, and then from there you can just use the sprite sheet as opposed to loading all these things individually. This has got to come into play. So this guy's got to come back over here. So this has got to go over here. There we go. So that's 1. Now, so cloud 0 and 1, that's pretty good. Exit button is going to be 2, so we got to realign these things. Island will be 3. Next button will be 4. Some minor changes here, okay? It's not like a big sheet. If you're going to do a big sheet, you'd have to do a complete revamp. 6 for the restart button. And where's 5? Oh, plane 1 is 5 now. All right, but I already include that. 6. 7 for plane 2. Start button is going to be 8. That's good. So 4, 6, 8. Next button is 4. Restart button 6. Start button's 8. Okay, good. And then 5, 7, 9. Okay. Now I need this piece. This piece has to change because this is all a little different, at least for the most part. Yeah, it's all realigned. So let's put this back. And we'll just realign this thing so it kind of looks the way, actually I'll just, my code. There we go. All right, so this is all changed up. Now I've added my bullet to my Spritesheet. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of close this one up. This is my new game.ts file, and I've got a bit of a change to make. So I'm going to go to, I modified 6 files. I added a bullet file. I modified my mailpilot.tps file, which is a texture packet file. Changed my game.ts file, and I got a transpile, right? That's important for me to do. So I'm going to Command-Shift-B, transpile. So I should have the other one now, a couple more files, right? So I made one simple change. I added my bullet. That's what I've done. So I added bullet image or object, if you will, image to project and updated Spritesheet. And push. So you should have that on branch 0.4. So that's what we're working with right now. Okay, we'll get back to branches in a second. So that's number one. So we have our object. You have to have an object in order for you to have a bullet. Okay. Let's go back on GitHub and add some of those things we need. Not here. Nope. This one. So if I go to GitHub, let's add some of these issues in so we can keep track, because I like to do that. Is it a bit of annoying for you guys? Maybe, but it's good practice for you guys to do. So here I am, and we go to issues. Do you have to do issues when you do your project? I haven't asked you to, right? I've never said you have to do issues. I'm showing you what I would do if it was me, right? Add a config class. We've got a couple of things we want to do today. I'm not sure if I'll do these. Right? I know how to fix this one now. Someone sent me a fix. That was good. Thank you. Right? I knew how to fix it before too, but it's okay. Let's go into here and add in. So I want to add a bullet class. Right? That's a new, and I want to do this as a new feature. Right? Add a bullet class, and it's going to hit milestone 4. This is what it's going to be, and I'll submit this new one. Okay, and the other thing is, once I add the bullet class, I want to have enable bullet firing in my game. So now, here's a question for you. I have a bullet. Yeah, okay. How do I fire the bullet? Am I firing the bullet? And what am I firing it at? I got to fire it at something, right? I can't just fire bullets, right? If I fire it at the cloud, I mean, I can make some sounds. Yay. And the cloud will disappear? Like, I don't know. Like, it's got to be a special bullet. We're going to say this, okay? When we fire it at the cloud for our special version of MailPilot this semester, right? Our cloud is actually a noxious kind of cloud that if you fire enough of these special bullets, they're made by the scientific community to disperse the cloud. That's what it's supposed to be, okay? That's going to be a thing. So we're going to fire it at the clouds. That's why it's a red bullet. Maybe should have made it a green bullet to help the crowd. So we're going to do, the next one is a new issue, bullet collisions with clouds, right? That's what we're going to do. So add the ability for bullet collisions to occur with clouds, okay? So submit new issue. This one is going to be an enhancement because we already have, well, maybe it'll be a new feature. So you can't do any kind of bullet firing right now. There. All right, so we're going to hit these two things. Not a lot today. Again, I want to sit down with some of you or whoever's here for marking, which is important to me as well. Let's do this. So let's add a bullet class. Let's do that first one. So again, this is nothing new for you if you've seen it. I'm going to go into my objects, and it's going to definitely be a type of game object. So I'm going to add a new file called bullet.ts. All right, we're going to add it to the module that's called objects. It's our objects module. And under our objects module, we're going to make a new class that we're going to export called the bullet class, which is going to extend the objects.gameObject class. Now, you don't have to put objects in there because we're in the objects, but I like to do that from a best practice perspective. Okay, good. So here I am with a game object class. I need a constructor. And remember what I need with a constructor for my game object, just like I do for island or player. If I go to player, the constructor needs an image string. These two things are the bare minimum. And I want to There's some stuff we could have probably copied from here. I want to definitely call this start, right? The start method that's inside of our stuff. So let me just grab this constructor. In fact, I'll just do one of these and pull this in into our bullet class. So some of it's repetitive, right? Which is, I guess, okay. But we're doing it because we want to save time, not because we want to say we can't do anything else. Okay, so that's one thing. So the bullet flies, right? That's kind of important for us to do. You know, and the bullet has to move around. It has to have some of the same features as some of the other things. Like, for example, island, right? If I look at the island, it has to do certain things. It has to, what about check bounds? Will I need a check bounds? And where would the bullet start off? The bullet origin is going to be the location of the player, right? And it's going to have to be, this is the other thing, I need to know that the bullet's going to have his own layer, right? Otherwise, there's a couple things we can do, right? We can put the bullet in front of the plane, right? So it comes from the nose of the plane. I'm just saying, right? We could put the bullet underneath the plane, so it comes from underneath the plane. But then that means the bullet would have to be actually physically in place before the plane, from a display object order perspective. Because remember, it goes like this. It goes, you know, clouds or the label first, then the clouds, then the plane, then the island, then the ocean. That's the lowest level, right? So we'd have to do the same thing. We'd have to, as we load things up, the next thing up goes on top of the other one, right? So it means that most likely the bullet would have to be in place, our bullet would have to be in place before the plane. Now here's the thing. We're not going to just make one bullet, because we want to be able to press that button a bunch of times, right? So how many bullets will we need, right? We're probably going to need a stream of bullets. We don't have too many of them, right? We're going to probably have to put together a stream of bullets. Am I instantiating new bullets? Is that what I would do? I'm putting it out there. You guys are game people now. What should I do? Should I instantiate a bunch of new bullets when I press the button? Am I instantiating?
An array of
So I got to have an array of bullets somewhere. They have to be somewhere on the screen. Well, they have to be instantiated anyway, right? They don't have to be physically added to the screen. I can add them anytime I want, right? But my challenge is, as soon as I add the object back onto the screen, like let's say, for example, I have 30 bullets, which would be probably a good number, right? You never run out of bullets like that. If I want to run out of bullets, maybe I'll only have 10 bullets. Then I can run out, right? But 30 bullets, that'd be probably enough that I can probably fill the screen up with bullets. 30 bullets, each one 16 pixels, 10 times 16 is 160. Enough that you can fill the entire screen, no problem, right? So, so 30 bullets is plenty, no problem, and way more than you probably need. I don't have to instantiate all of them. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't have to add them to the display object. My display object would be the game. I don't have to do that. I can remove the bullet from my display object anytime I want, right? So what I want to do is somehow get access to that bullet, whatever the bullet is that got hit, just like I would if I had, as an example, a bunch of clouds. And I'd have to update each of the bullets, right, in the bullet array, right, over and over again. That's why I have to do that. So bullet, the object bullet is one thing, but I need something called a bullet manager, right? I need the bullet manager to kind of manage, or some kind of array, however you like it, and I can do it in my play scene, where I instantiate this bullet array, and the bullet array is going to have a bunch of bullets that I preload onto it, right? And then when that bullet moves up the screen, when I fire the bullet, right, it has to have some kind of method of moving up the screen at a certain speed. And I got to figure, it's got to be faster, like probably like, you know, at a speed of like 5 pixels per frame, or at least, or 10 pixels per frame. It's got to be fast enough. So we have to test it out. Okay. Okay, I'm talking about this because we can talk about methods, right? Methods. So this start is part of this. We can look at some other things for the cloud, just to remind ourselves. The cloud is pretty simple, eh? It's got an update and a start method and a reset, right? Here's my reset method right here, right? So definitely we need to have a public start method for sure, and a public update method, because that's required in our bullet class. All right, so let's put those in. So public start, which returns void. And we're also going to have a public update method that returns void. We're also going to have some kind of reset, right? Is it going to reset? Do I put where do they exist, these bullets? Do they They got to be somewhere, right? So they can't be anywhere on the screen. So it can't be like anywhere between 0 and 640 and 0 and 480. Can't be that way. So it's got to be like way off the screen, like 1,000 by 1,000. That's where and I probably store them all together in one spot, like all on top of each other, like just layered on top of each other, because it doesn't really matter, right? So they're going to zoom away from that spot. They're going to teleport to where you want them. And then once they teleport on the screen, they're going to go up in one direction. That's the easiest way to go, right? So that's where it would have to be. So then the position of the bullet is important, right? This means I need some kind of starting position, right, if you will. And the starting position, or the default position, the resting position of all the bullets, right? Back to resting position or default, right? So I'm going to have to, at the beginning, think about some kind of private instance variable, right, that have the ability for me to keep track of the position of the bullets. I also have vector2 objects that I can use. Remember, this is going to be a vector2 type object, because my vector2 objects, remember, takes care of x and y coordinates, right? So I want to kind of just kind of hold the you know, where my starting position is. Plus, it also has distance formula built in, all kinds of nice things, right? So I want to be able to do that with the starting position. All right, so let's go back. So I'm going to kind of go back to my bullet. You know, think this through, right? So we're going to call this, it's going to be private, and it's going to be kind of the default position. And the default position is going to be something like where it starts off, if I want to send it back to default, right? Which is going to be an object, that vector2 object, right? Starting off. Right. So that's the first thing. We haven't assigned it. We haven't created a new vector2 object yet, but we're going to do that. Let's keep looking at the other stuff we have, just as a reminder of how we do things. So here's our cloud object. We have an update. We have a start. We have a reset, right? We have a check bounce. Check bounce, probably you're going to need. Reset, not sure if we'll need a reset. We may need to just, our reset, we may use reset, but our reset won't be a reset like we thought. Reset will take us back to the default position. That's all it's going to do, right? It's not going to reset. Once we check bounds, we'll have a check bounds when the bullet is less than or equal to 0, right, or off the screen, whatever it's going to be, plus the height of the bullet, which is 16 pixels, then we're going to send it back to the default position. So as long as it leaves the screen somehow, the bullet's going to go back to default. All right, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so we need a reset, and we need and it's going to be a private, and we need a check bounds for sure to check to see when that happens, right? So that's something that we need to do. So let's go back to bullet. These are definitely things we need. So these are public methods, and we're going to put some private methods in here. So private methods, and we'll say a private reset, which is going to return void, which is going to do something for us. When we call the private reset, we're going to say, you know, this dot position, because we have a position, right? The position for this one is part of our objects.gameObjects vector2. There's an actual position, is equal to our default position, this dot underscore default position, right? That's the first thing. And we also have to change the x and y coordinates to match that, because that position doesn't just change the position. Doesn't really do anything in terms of our stuff, right? So that is a good statement. But we also have to say something like this: this dot x is equal to, you know, this dot underscore position now. Oh, sorry, position, the new position dot x, and this dot y is equal to this dot position, oops, dot y, because those things have to happen. So again, we have to figure out how this works, but we don't know. We don't have this yet. So we have to also have some kind of initializer. When do we initialize stuff? Well, let's take a look. So reset, and we have to have check bounds here. Right, private check bounds, private. And the way we check bounds, of course, is we say something like, if the bullet, right, this dot position, right, dot y, the y position of this object, right, is less than or equal to 0 minus 16, right? Because it's like 16 pixels. So the height of the object, so let's say less than or equal to minus this dot height, not half height, the whole height. I want it off, right? Well, if that's, so it's off screen, the whole height of the object, right? Then call this dot underscore reset, right? Because we want to be able to reset the position back to the other one. Just to keep in line with what we're doing, right? So we check bounds, and then when it's off screen, when we reset it. And reset does something else, right? I want to go with a single responsibility principle, even for our methods, right? So you got to think about each method has to have one responsibility. It only does one thing, right? As much as possible, right? Still don't have a default position though. Let's go back to our player. Let's see other things here that I can do. So we got our check bounds, we have our start, we have our update. These are all things, and it's, if you notice the pattern, it's all the same kind of patterns that we have for each of our player. Our ocean doesn't quite meet the same thing. Island, ocean, island. So check bounds, reset, all the same. And there's a reason for this, because we want to conform to our the style that we've been kind of putting in place for this whole time, right? And we have a couple dx and dy values. Here's our button as an example, and here's our bullet. So we don't really have a space for this to happen. This is something new, default position, right? So my recommendation is either we do it in start, right? So here's in our start, which we do a lot of our reset, a lot of our initialization, right? So in our start method, we're going to say something like this. This dot underscore default position is equal to a new vector2 object, right? With a position of 1000 by 1000, like way off screen. There's no way we're going to get to that with our game right now. If you're making a side scroller, you'd have to make it something that, and might be negative values, negative 1000 by negative 1000, something that's impossible for you to ever get to, right? For now, we're never going to get to this 1000 by 1000, right? So 1000 by 1000 is like way over here to the right, right? That's a default position. This is every bullet is going to have this, right? Okay. Speed. We also have to have that. Speed of our bullet is have to have a default speed, and they're all going to have to be the same. So we're going to call this speed, right? Which is going to be a type of number. Okay. Now we don't have speed because if I look at game object, here's our game object.ts, just to look and see. We don't want to duplicate anything we've got in here, right? Width, height, name, position. We have position, which is a vector2 object, and in our position, somewhere or another, we're going to initialize. Here's our vector2 object, right? Our position is going to be a new vector2 object, right? Which with this x and this y initially, right? And then somewhere along the line for our, we want to update that this dot position. We want to keep track of positions, right? Later on, right? So we want to set the position. We want to set the position or get the position depending on what we're doing, right? The position of the object, right? Okay, and then on update, so start, we do something, so on update of my player class, let me show you the player class for a second. So we start off, and here's our start method. Start method is where the y position is, right? But on update, we want to say that the position, right, is still a new, we're going to reestablish a new position every single time, right? Every frame, we're going to kind of create a new vector2 object and replace the old position. We want to keep this functionality, right? We want to keep this functionality for our button, our bullet. Our bullet's very similar to this, right? Okay, so this we want to do. And we also want to do this. We don't want to do the other one, the core X, this other one, but we'll take all this stuff. So we don't want to follow mouse, that's for sure. All right. Although, that's also another thing we could do. We can make the bullet underneath the player the whole time. So when he's moving, the bullet's underneath the player, right? Not a good idea. I don't recommend, okay? I don't recommend it at all. But some people have done that. They've suggested that to me in the past. So the bullet always stays underneath the player because the player object is hiding the bullet. Don't think it's a good idea. All right, let's go back to our bullet. And again, I'm borrowing from the other one so we don't have to redo everything from scratch. Okay, we don't need this piece because it's not going to follow this, right? But we do need to check bounds every frame. And this is definitely going to have an effect, right? So when the bullet fire is happening, all right, there's a point where the bullet is in transit, when it's being fired, right? So it's like this bullet itself has been fired, right? When it has been fired, what we want to check is to see the new position, and the position is going to change relative to the speed up the screen, right? From the new position where it's going to be at, where the player is, okay? So we got to figure that out as well. This is, by the way, once we create the bullet class, we have that bullet. Each bullet's going to have the same properties, right? Well, it's going to be different bullets, right? So the first piece is understanding the bullet, what it does, this object, this missile that we're going to send out, this projectile, right? All right, so let's go back. So again, it's the reset. We're going to reset, so when the position keeps track of it's going to go back to the default position. The default position is going to be here, right? It's going to be defined one time and start at 1,000 by 1,000. That's what's going to happen every time it resets. And when the bullet's being fired, right, we have to trigger the bullet being fired, right? So we have to know if it's in transit or is fired, right? So this has got to be a public property, right, which means we need getters and setters. So first we'll do private, and we'll say is fired, or is triggered, whatever you want to call it, in transit. What would you think a better one is? In flight. How about in flight? I like that. The bullet is in flight. Right, there we go. And we're going to set this off so that by default, the bullet is not in flight. Right, so in our start method, we'll say this dot underscore, well, we won't, not yet. We want to set some getters and setters. And if you want to see the pattern for getters and setters, remember, they're right up here. So get with and set with, right? We'll let's grab these two because I'm not going to type these up by hand, right? And I want to pull it in the bullet, something new that only the bullet has, but the other classes don't have, right? And they're definitely going to be under here, right? So I'm going to kind of go in here, and we're going to say this. Now there is no width and this kind of stuff, right? But what we will say is this is the in flight. And it's not going to be thing. It's going to be Boolean, and this won't be a width. It'll be the is flight. In flight. We'll say it's in flight. One of those things, right? In flight. In flight. New state. Right, so that's because remember we're doing a new state. The new state will be under the Boolean, true or false if it's in flight, and it'll be affecting in flight. So this in flight. Again, I'll explain what all this stuff is. Okay, so getters and setters. These are public properties. Public properties. Okay, so public properties are going to have, there's two. There's a getter for in flight. I can set this there if the bullet's in flight or not, which sets this in flight, right? Oh, sorry, gets in flight. And this one isn't set in flight. Is either true or false, right? I can set or I can get. Well, is it in flight? Or yes, it is, or no, it's not. All right? This is only accepts a Boolean value of true or false. Okay? That means that down in here, to set this properly, by default, it starts off that this dot in flight is equal to false, right? Because we want to set that the bullet's not in flight. When we start off, the bullet's at rest, right? Okay? And then we're going to say this. If the bullet is in flight, right? That's in update. If the bullet's in flight, we want to move it, right? So if this dot in flight is equal to true, right? If we should say this in flight, means that it's true. If this is in flight, then what does it mean? It means we have to move the bullet. So the bullet is going to move up. So the bullet's that Y position, right? So we're going to remember it also has, because it has a position, we want to keep track of the position vector, right? But we want to change, and we want to change the position as we move, right? So we're going to be strategic about this. This position should actually be lower than the check, right? Whatever the position vector is. So we're going to say something like this. This dot Y minus equals to this dot underscore speed. Uh-oh. If I'm using this dot speed like this, I need a getter and setter for speed, because I don't ever want to set speed or anything else directly within my class ever. Best practices are to have my speed set by like this way, right? So I have speed as an example. If I use the underscore, that's a bad thing, and I did it already once with default position. We're going to change that. This isn't in flight. This is speed, right? And it won't be a Boolean. It'll be a number. So the number is going to change. This is new speed patterns, right? Speed. And we're going to say it's not this, it's this underscore speed. So we're going to grab this one. And why? Because, and you might say, but Tom, I mean, a lot more overhead. You got all these extra values. Do you really want to, you know, make getters and setters? Yes, I do. Because I can always check. I can always add a console log when the speed is being set here. Can't do it as easily anywhere else. I can always check or add values, do some validation here when I'm changing the speed up or whatever. So I got speed getters and setters too, right? All right, so if that's true, minus equals to this dot speed, which is a public value, right? And this default position, the reason why I'm going to leave it as is, I'm going to tell you like this, is because, you know, it's something internal that only, and I'll use these very, very, very rare, right? But this dot default position, I'm never going to share that with the outside world. It's always going to be private, right? This dot speed, I may, just saying, right? So that's why I kind of made it like this. So this dot y minus equals speed, which means it's going to go up. It's going to go up the screen. When it hits, I'm going to change the position because I'm going to keep track of my position as well. When my position, it's going to take the x and y coordinates, whatever they are. How about the y, the x? Well, the x and y coordinates, when it gets triggered, then it's in flight, right? So I got to say when I fire the bullet, when I click the button, then I create a new bullet, or I put the new bullet back into play. It's in flight, right? But I got to make sure that it's triggered. It's you know, I gotta say that it's going. It's been fired somehow, right? So I need a method like fire bullet fire, right? Which makes sense. It's going to be a public method, right? So I'm going to kind of put it before these ones. Right? So here's a public method. We're going to call it fire, right? It's going to return void, and all it's going to do is bullet fire method. I'm making it capital F, a little bit different than these ones. It's going to trigger that this dot in flight, right, is equal to true. So we're going to say, yeah, it's in flight now, right? And we also have to change the position, right, to the new x and y coordinates. I want to make the x and y coordinates of the plane minus, right, half the plane's height. So because we want to make it so that it's just outside of the plane. So if the plane's height is 65 pixels, whatever the coordinates are going to be in the middle of the plane, because that's the default position, it's going to move out to here. And if I make it there, it's going to be right on top of the plane, maybe a little bit more. So half the plane's height plus, I don't know, 5 pixels, something like that. Might be enough where it doesn't start exactly on the nose of the plane, right? Something like that. So that's where it's going to be. So we'll say this dot x is equal. So the x coordinate would be this, but right and left. That's okay, right? That's going to be exactly on the nose of the plane, right? Wherever the plane is, that's going to be right in the middle of the plane. So this dot x is equal to the plane. Now remember, do I have access to the player object? Do I have access to the player object in here? And do I have access to any of the objects here when I create when I create this thing? But this is another challenge for my bullet. My bullet should always know where my player object is, right? Or I set the position of the bullet based on my public fire. So public fire would set the position, and whatever this would be, so that I don't have to know the plane. When I call the bullet fire, it equals to the plane's position, right? Okay, but that means I gotta set it inside my fire thing. That's the thing that has to happen. So I need to take in a position. So whatever position is, it's not this position, but I'll call it new position, right? And that's going to be equal to a type of vector2 object, right? That's the beautiful thing about vector2s. We've just mapped x and y coordinates, right? And now I can say that this dot x is equal to new position dot x, right? And then this dot y is equal to new position. We can figure out the offset outside of this class, maybe. We'll say whatever the position is, well, I don't know, maybe we'll do it inside. I don't know, we'll figure that out later. But that's the one thing. So x and y. And then what I want to do is I want to say that this dot position, because we also want to have the position to help us with collisions, right? This dot position is equal to new position at the end, right? Okay. Remember the position, that this dot position, that variable is really just helping us from a collision perspective. That's all it is. There's nothing else that helps us do, just that. Okay. The other thing I want to do is that we haven't mentioned what this thing is, right? So somewhere in the start method, we should probably say that this is a bullet, something like that, right? So like this dot name, right, is equal to, and I'm not sure if we've done this before, is equal to like bullet, and I think we did that. We didn't do it for plane, but I think we may have done it for some other thing. Let's check to make sure that I'm right. I might be wrong about this because it's been a while since we've done this. So no, we've done. I think, or maybe what's happened is when we do our initializer in our game object, I've already done this automatically. Let me just take a look. So I know the name is very important for me to put together because otherwise, yeah, it is. It's automatic. So we're good to go. Go back there and take that off. So it's based on the image string, right? So whatever I'm going to call bullet, it's going to be called bullet, right? So, I mean, we've got our trigger, our fire. So when it's fire, in flight is true. X and Y position starts off somewhere, right? And this dot position is equal to new position. And then when I start off, right, when I update, if it's in flight, it changes the Y position according to the speed of the object until we check bounce, until the position of the Y is outside the screen, and then we reset. When we reset, we change the position to the default position, and then we also should say that the in-flight value is false. So we should say that this in-flight is equal to false, because that will be, once we leave the screen, we reset. It's not in flight anymore. It's back to the default position. So we're not going to keep updating the position of the object. We only do that when it's in flight, which is going to save us some time. Whew, bullet class, right? Now, you know, we should probably put in some kind of things for commenting, right? So this is a private, and this is our reset. So at method underscore reset. Again, it returns void, right? Returns void, no description. And this method, I think we already did this, resets the object, resets the bullet object. There we go, and check bounce. We can do the same thing for here really quickly. At private, and then at method, bounce, and we'll say at returns void, no description. All this does is it resets the checks the if the bullet went off screen, checks or evaluates if the bullet has left the screen, and calls reset. Right, then our bullet fire method is important because that's new. So it's a vector2 position object, but it also has a at method, which is called fire. Right, it does return void, at return void, and like this method triggers the bullet being fired. Straightforward, right? Start method and update, I'll do that later. But that's really it in a nutshell. It kind of does all those, right? Speed and flight and whatever. And now we have to add bullets to our bullets array, right? So how many bullets do I have in my array? And how do I add the array, these bullets off screen? And how do I reset these bullets to the other side of the screen? All these things. This is going to happen all inside my play scene. So I'm going to go to my play scene as an example. And just to see what this is, I'm going to make, just like we have up here, we're going to have, just like we have clouds, I'm going to have a private bullets array, which is of objects bullet. And because we've added a new object inside of our objects, here's bullet.ts, right? We need to add this into the flow, into our manifest, right? See all this? It's crazy, right? Now, collision should know about cloud, player, and island, and bullet. So somewhere in here, bullet should be there. Probably should know about the other ones. Bullet should definitely know about cloud. Cloud doesn't really need to know about bullet. So let's just go into here and put it around here. Order makes a difference. So this is bullet.js. We put it there. And we also put it inside of our reference TS in the same location as where we put everything else. We don't have to, just a best practice again so that we don't lose track. Some people also have commented that you don't need to have this, you know, the references, and it'll keep track anyway. Yes and no. I always have less problems when I do this. So remember, we are using multiple technologies here all at the same time, talking to each other. So I just want to make sure it's like right. All right, so cool. Let's check to see if it got added in properly, because I always check to see that happens. So objects, and we'll see if the bullet.js has been updated with my latest comments. And that's all I need to know. So it's updated. There we go. So we have our bullet. And where do I instantiate the bullet in my play? Because I got to test it to see if it works. We'll make one bullet. We'll make it fire from the get-go. So how do I do that? So I got to go to scripts, go to scenes and play. And now that we have this, okay, so here's our update scoreboard. Here's our start. All right, ocean, island. We want the bullets to be underneath the player. It's got to be right here. This is where all the bullets got to be instantiated by default, because we're not ever going to take them away from the screen. We're going to always have them on, like actually on the display object, the game container, or the scene container. They're going to be there, but this is going to be off screen, right? So therefore, they're all going to appear underneath the plane forever. Like even if I make a mistake, it's going to appear below the plane, which is good because it happens in order of assets. And if you notice what we did here, this new array of objects, this is what we need to do. We're going to do this dot underscore bullets, right, is equal to a new, and this is array, right? And when I do the angle brackets, it means give it the type of the array. Angle brackets in TypeScript mean type. That's a great way of typecasting. If I want to type or cast an object with a special type, I just put angle brackets in front of it, and it's that type. That's the way to do it. So I can say something like, well, it's of type objects, objects.bullet, right? Objects.bullet. And so that's the first thing. So we instantiate the bullet array, but it's empty. So we're going to need to do a for loop of some kind, right, where we count how many bullets I want. So I do a for loop. Check, change a for loop. There we go. I want a for loop, and what I want is, this index. What I want to call it is how many bullet, like the bullet count or whatever you want to call it, or I don't know, call it bullet. And of course, this is going to be the bullet length. Let's see how many we'll add in for now. 10 bullets. There we go. 10 bullets. See how that works. And then we'll say instead of var element array of bullets, we'll say, remember, because the bullet array is always also like a list, we can say this dot underscore bullets dot push a new objects dot bullet, right? Which we're going to pass in the bullet object. That's the type. And we're going to add them to the this dot add child, this dot underscore bullets, right? And bullet. Hi.
We're just doing some renovation here in the hallway, so you may hear some noise for about 20 minutes.
Go ahead, do what you have to do. All right, so this adds in, you know, actually, maybe what we want to do is want to call this, that's okay, we'll leave it as is. Maybe bullet count, because we've already done count here, and we'll definitely want to use let in here instead of var, because it's going to help us. All right, so does that make sense? So we do an array, we're going to do 10 bullets. I'm going to add 10 bullets to the bullets array. And what I want to do now is, it's added, but they're off screen because the default position, when we add them in, again, going back to the bullet object we just made. So there's a bullet object, right? So we instantiate this, we instantiate, right? Again, let's go back and figure this out. I instantiate a bullet. I call my start method. The start method gives me all the details, right, for the default position. Default position is equal to vector 2000 by we never put it there. We gotta put it there. So we got to say something like this. We got to say x and y. This x and this y is actually physically at 1000 by 1000. Or else we're gonna have bullets on the screen. We don't want that, right? We did that over here, didn't we? Because when we reset, here's where we reset. The reset. Let's go back to reset here. This does this, right? Which is the position, the default position, and then this does all this, or whatever, right? And we're going to call that. And do we call reset first from the first point? Well, no, but maybe in start, instead of doing this piece, right? This whole thing, we reset, right? Because that makes sense, right? We did all this stuff with duplicating, right? Might as well just call the reset method. So when we start, reset everything off screen, so it gets reset off to where it's supposed to be, and then it gets triggered. All right. All right, it's a great place. It's a great place to check to see if it all works before we upload to GitHub, and to know that it's there, right? So what I want to do is, just for the beginning, I'm going to say inside our place scene, just for test purposes only, right? We're going to instantiate one of the bullets and trigger one, right? So we're going to say, and we're going to do the first one, bullet 0, just to say, right? So again, these are all things we got to consider how we doing it. What do we do with the next one? How do we, once one's fired, right? It's once triggered. How do we go loop through the next one and the next one, and the next one as I keep firing? And what's my firing mechanism? Is it going to be the space bar? Is it going to be the mouse button? Like, how are we going to fire bullets, right? These are very important considerations, right? So again, I'm just saying, like, we got to think about these things, right? So fine, we made bullets, but they're off screen. And then the other thing we have to do is we have to call the bullets up here, some of the updates, right? Bullet updates have to be called. And this is going to be done pretty much, you know what? You know, just around the same time as the clouds are updated. So island, player, updates, then the bullets get updated somewhere. And we got to do a collision check between the bullet and the cloud, right? You know, for each cloud, right? That's one thing we need to do. So there's this one. We have to do another collision check eventually for the bullet and the cloud. We put that inside the same place in here. That's where the collision check for the bullet and the cloud is going to be. But we also want to move the bullet, right? So, how do we do that? So for each cloud, what we have to do for each bullet. So let's do this dot underscore bullets, right, for each. And then for each bullet, we want to for each of the bullets that are in the bullets, right? I want to do a bullet.update. And I also, I'm doing this preemptively, right? I'm saying this dot underscore collision check, right? Dot check with, this is important, this is something neat, right? This dot bullet, or this bullet, right, with the cloud. Uh-oh. We have a cloud. And can I do that here? And here's the other problem. I got to run a for loop, but I need to check for each bullet and for each cloud. Huh?
You need to attach each cloud to each bullet.
I could, but that's like I could check with the bullet in the cloud, but then I don't have any idea of the clouds are. So I'd have to do a for each in there. That's gonna be a challenge, right? Unless we have some other way of checking, right? So there's got to be some way of checking with the bullet in the cloud, the bullet with another object. I got to be able to check each object, especially if there's multiple objects. I got to check each of the objects with each of my bullets to say that one hit the other one. So multiple bullets, multiple objects. I got to run a for loop with all of them, right? And how do I want to do it? Do I want to do the bullet on the outside loop and the cloud on the inside loop? But somehow I got to do it. So it's almost like two for each loops running around each other, right? That's how it's got to be. So it's got to be like this, right? But I got to do the bullets for each inside or around the clouds for each or something like that. And is that possible, right? Because for each loops are weird, right? For each loops have like a context, right? So we got to be very, very careful here, right? So cloud is a different meaning than bullet, right? Let's try it. So I want to take this one. We'll take the bullet first. And we haven't done this yet, but we'll pull it outside the cloud like this. And this checks for each bullet update. So this is update each bullet in here. And I got to update each cloud, right, in here. And this one here, I mean, this is nice. This collision check is going to have to happen in here, right? So the cloud updates, the bullet updates up here, and woohoo! For those people on the video right now, you're hearing vibrations, and it's not the vibrations of us being in love with each other here, right? It's the vibrations of the room, right? And we're gonna have to take a break, a pause while we do this, okay? So I'm just gonna update this. There we go, and we have to test this to make sure it all works, right? Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll test everything out and make sure that everything works.